Okay, in this section we are going to calculate the frequency, and I always recommend to use StatCrunch as much as possible. So we will open in StatCrunch and we will calculate the frequency. Instead of having to hand count the frequency, we can use StatCrunch to help us do that. So we can go to Stat. There's more than one way to calculate the frequency, but I'm going to use tables and I'm going to use frequency. Select variable 1, and I'm going to do frequency and relative frequency. And be careful when you get your information because it's not in exact order as our chart over here. So make sure you read it correctly. Excellent is 16, good is 21. So 16, 21, 11, and 12. So we'll enter that in 16, 21, 11, and 12. Okay, and we will check our answer. And on the next part, it wants us to calculate the relative frequency. So if we go back to our table, we already have the relative frequency calculated. We need to round it to the nearest thousandths. So for excellent, it would be 0.267. Now we need to look at good, which is just a second, let's see, good is 0.35, and then fair is 0.183. So 0.35, 0.183, and then poor is 0.2. And let's check it, make sure I put those in correctly. Okay, and then you have cumulative relative frequency. So what we'll do is we will add those together as we go. The first one is excellent, so that is 0.267. And then the next one is good. So we will add 0.267 with 0.35, and I believe that will be 0.617. And then to get fair, we will add 0.617 with 0.183, which is 0.8. And then add 0.8 with 0.2, which is 1. And it will always add up to 1 or 0.999. Okay, and the next one, it says create a horizontal bar chart. Choose the correct chart below, and we have the frequency. So we need to go back to frequency and look at our numbers. Excellent is 16, 21, 11, and 12. So let's see which one is 16 for excellent. That one is a little bit under 15. This one is over 21, and this is the only one that has 16 for excellent, so we know that that has to be the correct one. Remember, we started out with excellent, which is E. E, there's 15, there's 16. Okay, and then the next one, what percentage of customers rate their dining experience as either excellent or good? So let's go look back at our information. You can either add excellent and good up, or you can go to your cumulative relative frequency, and they're already added up, excellent and good, 0.617. You have to change that to a percent, so 61.7%, and that's it. Okay. Now on the next one, it says a salary survey was conducted to measure the impact of having an MBA degree. Okay, and it wants us to construct a clustered bar chart that summarizes these data. So one thing we can do is we can pull up our information, and we can just use our information and look at the bar chart. So for the first one, C, consulting, no MBA should be 67. And NBA should be 100,000. So let's just look at our bar charts. I'm going to look for 100,000 for the NBA. So if you look at 100,000 for the MBA, answer choice A does not have 100,000, so you can automatically look at B and tell that it is 100,000 for MBA. Okay, and then if we get a similar question, let's look at another one. For 4 years experience, no MBA, consulting should be 66,000, so look at your answer choices. And the only one that has 66,000, this one is a little bit over 70, so it can't be answer choice C. It could be A or B. So let's look at the blue MBA, 101,000. This one does not go all the way up to 101,000, so it has to be B. Okay, let's look at question 4. And it says, construct a clustered bar chart that summarizes this data, okay? Cluster bar chart. Alright, first of all, you need to make sure that you know what a cluster bar chart is. Remember, it's always easy to just go to your question help if you're not sure what it is, and it'll give you an example of a clustered bar chart. So this is a good thing to use when you're working these problems, is view an example. Okay, so our clustered bar chart is either going to be C or D. So look at your table and let's look at January. Okay, the blue is January, the red is May. So in January, for our clustered bar chart, 21%. Okay, so let's look at our two choices here. This would be 10, 20, 30%. This would be 10, 20%. So you would have to go with answer choice C. Now let's look at a similar question for question number 5. And you're doing the same thing, except you're using a stack bar chart this time. So let's pull up our information for major 1. You should have 34, and for major year 2, you should have 33. So they should total to approximately 67. So if you look at your bar charts, they should be about even for the most part, and they should hit about 67. And it looks like from our answer choices, most of them are about at 67. So let's look at our next one, 24 and 40. So they should total about 64. So I believe this one would be a little bit too much. And answer choice A would not be enough because it doesn't go up to 64. So let's look at C and D. Okay, 60, yeah, it's very close. And then D, the first one was 67, this one's 64, and it's a little bit higher, so it can't be that one. So it's looking like that it's between B and C. But if you look at C, 24 and 40, this one is 24 and 40. So let's look at major 3, 31 and 38. So that should total 69, 31 and 38. Okay, let's look at major 4, 15 and 13, which would be 28, 15 and 13. If you look at this one's a little bit below. So let's check and see if it's C. Okay, on this problem, what we're looking at here is the relative frequency. And when you're using this type of chart, you want the line to continue to go up until it reaches 100%. So it has to be between A and D. And if you look at your percent of relative frequency, you want it to be for A 36%, 10, 20, 30, that looks like 36. Let's look at the B, 16%. Get your information, and it looks like, let's go on to C. C, should be a little bit smaller. Notice that this one skipped and put B back here. Okay, and if you look at a pie charts are pretty simple. You have 20 of beef. You take the 20 and divide it by your total, which here I believe it is 56. So you do 20 out of 56. And notice that I selected this one. If you change these 2%, you can see the portion of pie charts. Of course, D, the yellow, should be the smallest. The green should be a little bit bigger than the yellow, and the red should be bigger, and blue should be the largest. Let's move on to A, and here's the same thing. You're just selecting the correct pie chart. And I believe all the other questions are identical to this. And that is section 2.3.